In the heart of a small town where faith was the lifeline of every soul, one love story grew too wild, too dangerous, and too unholy to survive. Behind church walls meant to protect the sacred, a passion burned so fiercely that it consumed vows, friendships, and eventually a life. In a town where faith ruled every home, one woman was admired as the perfect wife, the perfect believer, the perfect partner to a man of God. But behind her gentle smile hid a hunger, a loneliness, a fire waiting for a spark. That spark came in the form of a man who wasn't her husband. And what began as a stolen glance would end in blood. On the surface, Miriam Hale had everything. She was the wife of Pastor Daniel Hale, a man admired by the entire congregation of St. Andrew's Chapel. He was charismatic, eloquent, devoted to his faith. His sermons filled pews. His words carried weight. And standing beside him, Sunday after Sunday, was Miriam, the picture of grace. She greeted churchgoers with warmth, led the women's study group, cooked for parish gatherings. People described her as gentle, pious, elegant. To the town, Daniel and Miriam were not just a couple, they were an example. A living reminder of what a holy union should look like. But what the congregation saw was only the painting. Behind the frame, cracks had already begun to spread. Miriam's private world looked very different. Daniel's devotion, though powerful, was rarely directed at her. His love was for the pulpit, the scripture, the ministry. Nights in their home were quiet, too quiet. His hands rarely reached for hers. His words, once tender, became rehearsed, distant, almost mechanical. Miriam found herself trapped in a role, the silent partner, the dutiful wife, the smile in the background. And loneliness is a dangerous guest. It starts as a whisper in the soul, a quiet ache. But left unaddressed, it grows. It eats away at resolve, hollowing even the strongest vows. Miriam prayed, of course she did. She begged for closeness, for warmth, for a sign. But Daniel gave her nothing more than scripture. His answer to every plea was a sermon, not a touch. And in the quiet of her nights, Miriam's hunger only deepened. It was in the midst of this emptiness that Thomas appeared. Thomas wasn't a stranger. He was a familiar face within the congregation, a man in his 30s, friendly, attentive, always willing to help. He volunteered for church repairs, joined choir rehearsals, and stayed late to tidy after services. But to Miriam, he became something else. It began innocently enough. A conversation after choir, when Daniel was busy with parishioners. Thomas asked about her week, her family, her life beyond the church walls. He truly listened in a way Daniel hadn't in years. One evening, after a long rehearsal, Thomas walked her to her car. His hand brushed against hers. A spark. Quick, unspoken, undeniable. Miriam told herself it was nothing. But when their eyes met, she saw something she hadn't felt in years: attention. And attention is a dangerous drug. Over weeks, the exchanges grew longer. A laugh here. A smile there. A conversation that stretched long after everyone else had gone home. The loneliness that once gnawed at Miriam began to find comfort in Thomas's presence. He was warm where Daniel was cold, curious where Daniel was dismissive. He noticed the small things, her hair, her laugh, her sighs. And slowly, imperceptibly, Miriam's devotion shifted. She began waiting for him, anticipating him. Her heart quickened when he entered a room. And in stolen moments, she imagined what it would be like if she were his, not Daniel's. Desire rarely arrives like a thunderclap. It slips in like a shadow. And once it takes hold, it grows roots deep, strong, impossible to pull free. But a secret, once carried, becomes heavy. Miriam needed someone to trust, someone to unburden herself to. And she chose Ruth. Ruth had been her closest friend for years. They prayed together, cooked together, shared laughter and tears. If Miriam had a sister in spirit, it was Ruth. So, late one evening, in hushed tones, Miriam confessed. She spoke of her loneliness, of Daniel's coldness, of the way Thomas made her feel alive again. She swore it was nothing more than stolen glances and passing touches. No sin, not truly, at least not yet. Ruth listened. She nodded. She placed a hand on Miriam's shoulder and whispered, "Your secret is safe with me." And for a moment, Miriam felt relief. But relief was fleeting. Because secrets, once spoken, are no longer truly yours. And in Ruth's eyes, something flickered. A shadow Miriam could not yet see. As weeks turned to months, the bond between Miriam and Thomas deepened. What began as conversation grew into touch. What began as touch grew into something more. Stolen hours. Hidden meetings. Moments too intimate to undo. The pastor's wife, the woman held up as a pillar of purity, was now caught in a web of desire she could not escape. And yet, she convinced herself it was controlled. That no one knew. That her life could remain balanced between Sunday smiles and weekday sins. But every double life has cracks. Every secret leaves a trail. And behind her back, Ruth was already watching. Collecting. Waiting. She thought she had found comfort. She thought she had found escape. But what Miriam didn't know was that the person she trusted most would become the sharpest knife in her story.